12 days away. Can you believe it? If everybody keeps their fingers crossed, hits your knees, whatever your mode of hope for Miami football to be played actually on the field, everybody stays healthy and in good shape versus UAB on a Thursday night, September 10th. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. We present Miami football first and foremost with Cam Underwood from State of the U, fresh off vacay. Cam, how you doing today?
No, I'm good. I mean, off vacay here, but I've been back to the secret day job and been doing some other things in the interim time. But no, it was good. Good to get away for a little bit and just kind of relax. So yeah, that's always a great thing. And yeah, I feel good. I feel strong. And yeah, we're on the downhill push towards the season. 2 weeks away, under 2 weeks away, which is crazy. But here we are.
And Miami actually, in regards to Power 5 play, has the opener. There's a few games going to be played this next Saturday, September 5th. And if you're really starved for college football, not to demean those teams at all, but in regards to what we most typically, those of us watching and talking right now, watch on a regular basis, which would be the Power 5 and the high-level Group of 5 games, that's not going to be the agenda next weekend, unless you want to scout UAB. They've got a game against Central Arkansas next weekend. But in regards to the Big 12 and the ACC, they get started the weekend of September 12th, but the Canes get after the Blazers on a Thursday night at Hard Rock. So it's the headliner. It's the first game of the season, if you consider the Power 5 the season of college football, and most of us typically do. So Miami in the spotlight from that perspective.
Yeah, and that's a familiar place. Obviously, we had the week 0 game against Florida last year. We had a kickoff classic first weekend against LSU the year before that. So we've done these kind of things. So yeah, we're just pushing towards the opener and everything, and just getting ready for football. It's been a journey for everybody, obviously, to get towards this point. Obviously the commentary around everything will pick up heading towards that week. It'll be interesting to see, especially from like opposing fan bases. I saw a couple people, Los and JP and a couple other guys saying, okay, cool. Let's know now where we stand, because if UAB is ranked 30th, like, the 5th team also receiving votes or whatever it is, if Miami beats, so are they good or are they not? And let's know now, because I don't want it to come back that if Miami wins, oh, well, UAB isn't anything, and or, if they lose, okay, well, just is UAB good or not? Just choose. And I mean, I think that they're one of the better G5 teams. I think that they had a 10-win season, 9-10, 11 last year, something like that. That's a talented team. Obviously, they had the 1 year off because the University of Alabama Board of Regents thought that they were infringing upon Alabama Crimson Tide athletics, which they weren't, but whatever. So yeah, they haven't been back from that hiatus too long, but that's a good team. They got solid players, and respect all opponents, but fear none. And Miami should go out and, get that win. But, in terms of the discourse, decide now if UAB is a worthy opponent or not. And then let's just go from there. Whatever happens, let's not necessarily go and twist things. But yeah, man, so Thursday night, the 10th, already requested that day off from the secret day job, so I won't be working the evenings like I tend to be doing right now. And yeah, it'll be back to football.
I run into that all the time, Cam, when I'm evaluating teams either that particular season or historically going back, because if you check out the schedules, they typically list the rankings for the teams at the time of the kickoff.
Right.
So that could be drastically different. I'll give you an extreme case. I was looking back at BYU's 1984 national championship season, and their opening win was against third-ranked Pitt. Well, third-ranked Pitt had just come off 2 major bowl wins with Dan Marino. Mm-hmm. Some people out there may have heard of him at quarterback, but he wasn't the quarterback for this particular team, third-ranked in the country, coming off Sugar Bowl and a Sugar Bowl win the previous season. So this particular Pitt team, third-ranked, according to the ledger at game time, finished 3-7-1. So you take that into context in regards to, obviously, I think mostly the final ranking obviously gives you the complete picture of how well the team played, but there has to be some consideration given to where the team stood at the time, because things may have drastically changed, and they may have earned to a degree through 5 games, 6 games, a ranking. I'll give another quick example before we actually talk Miami football. Michigan State was dissed several years ago when they were a national contender for only having like a 1-1 record, 2-1 record, whatever it was, against ranked teams. And people were saying they haven't played any ranked teams. 3 consecutive weeks, Michigan State beat a ranked team to knock them out of the rankings. So then you have to take those into consideration. And there's nothing magical about being number 25 in the country. And if you're number 26 in the country, we just don't count that high. But there's really no separation between 25 and 26. It's just there's nothing magical or dropping off the cliff about being number 26. So is UAB good?
Right.
They're not Miami good. This game, I said on here last week, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody said this game's going to be 45-10. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if somebody said Miami wins this game 31-26. I'm just not going to be surprised because they've played down to their opponents. UAB's quality, I'm not going to discount that. But Miami may put it together and roll and do what they need to do. All right. We've got Mr. Chase Smith in the fold as a commit here in the last week. And always the big question when you see and you're not familiar with that particular student athlete's resume and what they've got on tape, for me, is obviously I see the category athlete and I want to know what position he's playing. But a top 50 player according to the 247 Sports Composite, 14th rated athlete in the country, top 40 player in Florida. So this kid can play. 6'3", 190.
Yeah, he's got good size, and he's played both sides of the ball in high school. Some people I was debating, again, with my buddy JP on Twitter. His account is locked, so if you can follow him, cool. I think it's Juice 300 now or something. But he likes Smith at wide receiver because we don't necessarily have a bigger wide receiver in that 6'3" range. I mean, you do have Michael Redding the third who came in this recruiting class, but you don't have another big recruiter or a big receiver. I like him at striker, that hybrid safety outside backer kind of position. I think he can hit, he can run. He just has range and length. So, Chase Smith is a guy who's made plays on both sides of the ball, Palm Bay Bayside High School. His father, Willie Smith, is a Miami Hurricane alum. He was one of the first All-American tight ends for Miami back in 1985. That's his son who's coming down and continuing that family legacy. It's a big get. Obviously, spots are tight in this class now. I think we're at 21 or 22 commits. And I think that Miami only has about 24 spots, especially, because we were taking, grad transfers and things like that. Somebody has to count forward, I believe, to make that work. So there should be about 24-ish, depending on what the NCAA does with scholarship numbers for this incoming class. So you're talking about only 2 or 3 more spots open. But regardless, Chase Smith is a guy that Miami wanted. He's a high caliber athlete. He's a 4-star recruit. So another blue chip guy. I've even seen things. I think one of our guys wrote it. I think I saw some other journalist also said, hey, Chase Smith might be at the top of the list in terms of physical ability, future potential, and schematic fit for Miami in terms of anybody in this recruiting class. So that's high praise. Obviously, when you look at the list, you see, we got 5 stars, literal 5 stars, plural, on this list. And you're talking about this other guy as potentially being at the top of the list in terms of fit, athleticism, and potential moving forward. So, Chase Smith is he's a big get for this class, just continues to stack just elite recruits on top of this roster, on top of this recruiting class. Another big win from Ephraim Bonda, who's just proven himself to be a tireless recruiter on the defensive side of the ball, just really doing the work that needs to be done. We need more guys to recruit like Bonda, to be perfectly honest. Chase Smith, he's a big get. He's a big kid. He could even grow an inch or two. He could be 6'4", 6'5". He could, obviously he's 190 already. You fill out that frame. If you put him at striker, you're talking 6'3", 225 in 2 years. I mean, that's fully within the realm of possibilities, especially with his frame, with his pedigree, just with the you know, because his dad is a bigger guy. He played tight end. You know what I mean? So he was in the 200 something range. So it stands to reason you can bulk out that frame and still keep the athleticism and speed and twitchy athleticism. Excuse me. So yeah, it's a big get, a real good add to this class, and Miami just keeps on rolling.
I'm scratching my head right now, not literally, but I'm scratching my head because I like to know who everybody is. And when you said Willie Smith, the legacy commit here with Chase Smith, tight end, who put up 2 really nice seasons for the Canes, as you mentioned. I got to admit, I don't remember this guy. And was I locked into college football in 1985, 86 in that range? Hell yeah, I was. And I was just having a conversation with a buddy last night. You know, there was a time when if you said, here's the San Diego Padres roster, I'd say, yeah, I know everybody. So I was one of those guys, but I'm quickly not becoming one of those guys because I think just, hey, life gets in the way and you've got more important things to think about and that sort of thing. But also just, you got to figure when you become an old guy like me, you got another year of history to chronicle up here and a lot of things get lost. But I was especially bothered by not remembering him. He was the 10th round selection by the Cleveland Browns in the NFL draft. I do not remember that. I do not remember Willie Smith. He caught 66 balls his first year with the Canes in 84. That was Jimmy Johnson's first year. It was a really talented, really good football team, but they lost a lot of tight games. That was the Doug Flutie game. That was the Maryland comeback to win like 42-40, Frank Reich. So they lost 5 games. They lost a bowl game to UCLA that was highly entertaining, like 39-37. So they lost to a lot of really good teams close. So they went 8-5, but 66 catches, 5 touchdowns. And they came back the next year, a team that competed for the national championship, but lost a very bizarre game against a Tennessee team that should not have beaten them, 35-7 in the Sugar Bowl. 48 catches the next year. Then for some reason he played 11 games but only had 3 receptions in 86. I don't know if somebody else really emerged or he got hurt and they just screwed up the stat on the games played. But anyway, Willie Smith, 117 receptions, nothing to sneeze at in regards to his contribution to Miami football. Now Chase Smith in the fold and just needs to sign on the dotted line sometime between December and February. Got Cam in the house. It's good to have him back, all rested and refreshed. Took some vacation, but not the complete 2 weeks. I certainly had his work to do. But
I mean, I took, well, I mean, because this is 3 weeks since I was last on.
Yeah,
so,
you can look at it that way.
You know, I took a week and a half of that 3 off.
Okay,
so.
Cool.
Oh, yeah. Hey, and one more time coming because I got to use it by the time I got to use it by. So not giving it back. So I'm taking it.
No, you can't do that. Can't do that. Man, I work around a few people that give back vacation and never.
Well, it was funny, you know, because when I was a teacher, it rolled over from year to year, your sick time and your vacation, you know, whatever. And obviously you had built-in vacations with the school calendar. So it wasn't, you know, a testament to like, okay, I have to schedule these because it was scheduled for me. But, you know, transitioning to this other job, you know, where it's like, okay, no, you have this time and you have to use it by such and such and such and such. And and like, oh yeah. So for certain people, it rolls over. But for my classification of job title, it does not. I said, cool. All right. Well, then I'm going to be missing for a lot of days between now and the deadline, but hey, it is what it is.
I've been in both situations, and certainly, you know, the corporation is determined that this particular person they employ has earned that vacation. I'm going to take my vacation.
Exactly.
Any time off I can take. The honor system for the sick days, of course, though. But anything other than that, for my particular situation, yes. And if I can roll it into next year, I'll roll it into next year.
Right.
All right. UAB's, again, 12 days away. And if you really look at the college football landscape in regards to scheduling, I'm going to say it's one of the tougher games that a team's going to have to face out of conference. The SEC is playing no non-conference games. The Big 12's kind of hit or miss for the teams that are able to find them. They've scheduled them for the most part, but they're really low G5 kind of games. We were looking at this the other day, Cam. It's just strange to look at college football scheduling. The 2 of the academies are only one of the academies. Of course, Air Force coming out of the Mountain West is only playing the other 2 academies. They're playing a 2-game football season. I think
Yeah,
it's
but
really cool. It's not cool. I don't want them canceling games, but if they're only going to play 2 games, I think in their case, I give it credibility because of the rivalry between the 3 service academies, and I like that they are honoring their commitment and they're all playing.
well, and that's also different for them because part of the system that they've built to grow leaders and officers in the military is through competition and things like that. So I'm sure that they're doing some intramural kind of things as well. My cousin Arthur, he's in the Army. He went to West Point. He's now a professor, Dr. Middlebrooks, if you will, at West Point as well. Him and his beautiful wife. So he played and did things, but it's part of the paradigm to prepare them for war kind of situations or combat things. So they go through the practices, they're in there, and then it is part of the whole paradigm for them. So I obviously take my hat off to them for continuing to do that. And they put out a statement to that effect a while back because people are like, why is our Army and Navy and Air Force doing these things? And if you want to talk about things being bigger than sport, that is it for sure. And like I said, my cousin, who is basically my brother, like he and I look very much alike, sound very much alike. His wife, a couple other people that I know have attended these service academies and things like that. So yeah, that's the other part of it for them. So yeah, it is a little bit of an exemption, just in towards what their future vocation is going to be, because they're going to do what they're going to do in the armed services moving forward.
Cam, there's somebody else out there that looks like you, sounds like you, talks like you.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, we favor, it's fun because so like his mom and my mom are sisters, right? So Arthur and I look alike, but his younger brother Andrew looks like our other uncle's daughter. So Faith and Andrew look alike, my 2 cousins, and then me and Arthur look alike. So I mean, yeah, but I mean, similar at least. He doesn't have all of the bottom and bass in the voice. My Uncle Jim kind of sorted. Well, no, he and I sound a little bit like. Mine has a couple decibels lower, or a couple tones lower than my Uncle Jim. But yeah, apparently my voice came from my great grandfather. I don't even know how we got on this, but yeah, from my great grandfather, who was a band leader in Chicago in like the 20s and 30s. So he was a musician. So I guess that's where it skipped a couple generations. Well, not even skipped a couple generations. My uncle has a performance degree on French horn from the New England Conservatory of Music. Yeah, he's a musician, or trained musician as well. And really good. I didn't know this till like later on in life. But like he used to play this warm up on his French horn. And it was like, he would just like modulate. So he would take it up and then like, and would just like do it. Just like easy as you like, easy as you breathe. And I worked at Interlochen Arts Camp, and they gave the excerpt that run is from to the best high school aged French horn players in the world for their audition for the 1 week. It was so hard and unplayable. They couldn't even play that piece of music. So they said, okay, we're going to take that piece of music back, put it in the file, and we're going to give you something else because you can't play this. And so I called my Uncle Jim. I'm like, and I'm in my 20s. I'm in college. Or I think I was already teaching. And I'm like, yo, you're like good, like real. He was like, yeah, like I've sat in with Cleveland Symphony Orchestra, which is one of the best in the world, Detroit Symphony Orchestra, Toronto, New York, no, like I'm that guy. Like when their number 1 guy gets sick or something, literally around the country, they call me, and I go, and I'm just like, and I just thought it was like some little warm-up thing that he did, but it's one of the most unplayable things that a French horn player can play. And he sounds like me when we talk. So that's the bow on that. But yeah,
that's very cool. That's good stuff. Ronan Jones has been showing up here. I don't know when he first appeared in the live chat. It's only been, to my recollection, in the last few weeks. But Ronan, thank you so much for the super chat. But you've been showing up, and big Canes fan, and certainly laying down the knowledge in the live chat. So Ronan, thank you so much for the contribution. All right, so we've had 2 scrimmages. So check out the information and the insight, the analysis there on State of the U, because the Canes are on the field, so you can keep up with how the team's progressing right there. Based on what you've been able to gather, Cam, what stands out to you?
Number 1, De'Aaron King is that guy. I mean, you got to start there. QB1, wearing number 1. So number 1 in your programs and in your heart. He's a different beast. He just is. Everybody's talked about it. Brevin Jordan has talked about it. Other guys after practice. and said, we're looking for a veteran leader to come in and lead this team. And, obviously the coaching staff says, if you come to Miami, we'll give you a chance to be number one to be the starting quarterback, and we'll see what happens. But, to a man, they say De'Aaron King came in and he just took it. He just took over the program. He said, this is my team. This is, as I go, we go, I'm going to lead us where we need to be. So that's number one. You know what I mean? And you have to start there. Apart from that, you just start seeing guys making plays. So obviously, Cam Harris, your starting running back. Behind him, Jalen Knighton and Donald Chaney Jr. Just showing out at running back, both of them true freshmen. I know that Knighton is getting all of the podcasters. I read the comment there. Sorry. Jalen Knighton is getting all the praise and everything because he played in the spring. And Jalen Knighton, the Rooster, is awesome. He's going to be awesome. But don't sleep on Donald Chaney. That's my personal favorite of the two running backs. Again, not saying that I don't like Knighton, because I do. I just think that I like Chaney's size, and he can play. He's out there making plays. You see these guys in scrimmages out there. Brevin Jordan obviously making plays. Will Mallory stepping up making plays. Xavier Restrepo making play on top of play on top of play. He had like an 80-yard touchdown run or 71-yard touchdown run in the first scrimmage. He scored again in the second scrimmage. My guy, Keyshawn Smith, is taking somebody's spot this year. He has multiple touchdowns across the first two scrimmages. He put up the highlight of him. They scored a very long touchdown and then hit the quan. Him and Xavier Restrepo did the little dance in the end zone after they got loose on that. And you see Al Blades Jr. in that video. So there were at least some starters on the field when Keyshawn Smith got loose for, 50 or 60. So he's out there making plays. The offensive line still, progressing, because we're not relying on them to have man-to-man blocking and just hold a guy, not hold, in penalty way, but occupy a defender, so that's going well. Defense, it's just next guy up. Everybody's making plays over there. First scrimmage, offense, I think, got the best of them. Second scrimmage, defense stood up a little bit taller in that, and which is good, because, you want to have a offense that stresses the defense, and likewise, or inverse as well. So you got guys out there making plays, Gervin Hall looking like a guy. Bubba Bolden back from injury looking like the guy over there. Jalen Phillips, former number 1 overall recruit, now back wearing number 15 since Gregory Rousseau has decided to sit out this season. His high school and early college number, Jalen Phillips, that is. He looks like a guy 6'6", 260, been timed up in the 20-mile-an-hour range when he was sprinting earlier in camp. Obviously, you got Quincy Roche on the other side making plays. You got these athletic linebackers making plays. You got Bradley Jennings and Wayman Steed coming back from, the cast-off pile of forgotten players, basically, because I figured we recruited over them and we're going to play, Brooks and Huff instead. But boom, you got, those guys stepping up. So you got even more depth at linebacker, I think. Obviously, the cornerback situation, still need to see progression there. But, I think that we're taking positive steps. And obviously, special teams, Lou Headley's great. Jose Barragales was a semifinalist for the Grozer Award, and he should be great this upcoming season as well. So, there's a lot to like. Sure, you want to iron out these rotations. Sure, you want to continue, as I knock on my wooden table, to avoid injuries and things moving forward. But there's a lot to like going forward this season. Or at least from the first two scrimmages. I think that this week we really should be separating the wheat from the chaff. So really getting that final depth chart kind of look to see, okay, these are the ones and these are the twos, because, you got one more week of camp, and then next week is game week, and you have a short week even. So sometime now-ish, I don't think that there's media availability until Monday-ish for Canes. So I want to say sometime in the very near future, we should kind of get an idea of, who the ones are, who the twos are, and really be on the downhill slope going towards the opener.
So we've got 127 on the line talking Miami football with Cam Underwood from State of the U. So we invite you on over to SB Nation. It's State of the U, and you can catch everything that he's not able to catch up with here, and also have a number of different perspectives from the rest of the staff. Turan, thank you so much for the Super Chat contribution. Turan, always in here talking Miami football with us. I don't necessarily understand the question, but we appreciate the Super Chat, so we'll No, I don't get it, because isn't Leonard Taylor an inside player and Shamar Stewart an outside player?
Right. No, yeah. But I mean, they're both 5 stars defensive linemen from down here. So basically, if I had to pick one or the other, I guess that's kind of how I interpreted it.
Sure.
If I have to pick one or the other, I'm picking Leonard Taylor because he's closer to the ball. And that's just, for me, that's where the lack of depth on the roster is. So to me, for Miami, a 5-star defensive tackle has higher value than a 5-star defensive end. That being said, if I had to just take them in a vacuum, as in, okay, one player or the other based upon just them and like regardless of position and like a 1-to-1, I'm taking Shamar Stewart. He's bigger, faster, stronger, twitchier. Like, I mean, he's a freak. So like a 1-to-1, I'm taking Shamar Stewart over Taylor. But if I'm considering usage and things like that, so like what position and everything, then I'm taking Taylor. But let it be known, both of them have a spot on my roster until, you know what I mean? Like, those are guys, and like I talked about it with Taylor, if he would have had a protracted recruitment where it went all the way to the end and we're still with 22 guys here, and I was talking about, oh, you got 24 spots, that guy gets a spot. I will work the math out later. I don't care. Yes. Same thing with Shamar Stewart. He wants to come to Miami. I got a spot for him, and I will figure it out. I mean, whether it's a guy, and I mean, look, I had friends who were on the football team at Miami. I had a friend of mine, had a half athletic, half academic scholarship. They needed that half athletic to put with somebody else's half athletic to get a full athletic scholarship 1 year. All of a sudden, you call over the student aid office, he has a full academic scholarship. Things like that can happen. I've seen it personally. So if I got to do one of those deals like happened back in the day, I mean, obviously not a Pell Grant kind of thing or like a sneak Santana Moss on a track scholarship kind of a thing, but like if I got to do something like that and take a half scholarship from here and a half scholarship from there to make a full scholarship for somebody else, and then I'm going to do it. But yeah, I mean, yeah, if you're taking into account positioning, I'm taking Taylor. If you're taking just in a vacuum, which player would I rather have with a higher ceiling? It's probably going to be Stewart, who's probably going to be a top 2 player in this recruiting class. You know what I mean? But yeah, they could both be on my roster. Who's knocking on my door? Goodness.
I'll talk if you need to go to the door.
No, you know what? It's probably just one of those Saturday deliveries. Go ahead.
We're talking about 2 of the top 10 players in the country.
Yeah, we're splitting hairs the long way. You know what I mean?
So we'll get to the question on the screen, and then we'll talk quarterbacks in the recruiting class because we've got folks asking about that. 904 Hurricane, I always appreciate your contributions as well. Always in the live chat, always supporting, always liking the videos and so forth, and called me for the first time in the call-in show the other day. So that was nice to hear from him after years of faithful viewership. These kind of questions, though, I got to say, 904 Hurricane, can anybody lose to anybody? Pretty much about 80% of the teams in the country can lose to the other 80%. So any concerns Miami's going to lose to Louisville? Sure, Louisville's talented. They're good. Could they lose to FSU? Yeah, they could lose to Clemson.
I mean,
yes.
Yeah, I mean, what Mark is saying, like you could this is where we're playing the what if game. And this is, when I was a teacher, and I would say things, sometimes if we're doing a bomb drill or a shooter drill, and saying, don't move at all. And you get that one kid who's like, well, but if I'm breathing, my diaphragm is sympathetically. You know what I mean? So like you can put these other kind of scenarios and things together. So hypothetically, I mean, could hypothetically Miami lose to Louisville 2 games in, lose to FSU game 3, and then lose to Clemson game 4? Hypothetically, that could happen as a mental exercise. Would that have the season probably fall apart? It wouldn't be great. Do I expect that series of events to happen? No, I don't. But is it in the realm of possibilities, like one of the, multiverse or multi-universe options for things that could happen? Yes, that is a thing that could happen. I just don't think it will.
I've been going through the SEC, and I post on the big board the schedule, and I put up the FPI probability for the percentage odds of winning that particular game as projected by them. I gave my own projection before I was influenced by the FPI. So then I've got my number there, which typically comes pretty close to the FPI, and basically state, look at this team. Team A has 5 games in which they're going to be favored. As it stands right now, things could change, obviously, leading into game week if it's the 9th game of the season. But as things stand right now, this team A is supposed to win 5 and supposed to lose 5. Could they be a 7-3 team? Yeah, pretty easily. They could be 7-3. Things could come unraveled a little bit. They could be 3-7, and they could be still pretty close to that 5-5 team. Yeah, it's close. And if you look at this, for better or worse,
it depends on the way that things break. Right. And I said this about Flanagan High School back years ago, before Devin Bush Sr. went there as a coach, before they started, just recruiting over all the guys that ended up winning a state championship for that team that had been moribund for the entire existence of that school. But years ago, when they had Justin Ferguson, who went to Notre Dame as a wide receiver, transitioned to linebacker, I said that was the best 5-5 high school team in America, because Miramar beat them by like 6. And this is a Miramar team that I think went to a state championship game or won a state championship that year. They lost to another couple, or Cypress Bay went to the 3rd round or 2nd round of the playoffs that year. They lost to another couple out of district teams that ended up going deep into the state series for whatever classification. So, a couple of plays break a different way for that team. They're 7-3, 8-2 heading into the playoffs as a high school squad. And so I say that to say similar things can happen at this level, like a couple of breaks here and there. Look, so I went to Miami. I'm blogging, broadcasting, everything about Miami. So let's talk about Miami. Think about last season, 6-7. How many plays have to go differently for that 6 to be a 9? Not many. You know what I mean? The margins are thin. Think about that Florida game. Sure, we lost. Things could have, but just looking at the result, what if 3 plays went differently that game? What if 4th and 17 singularly went different in the North Carolina game? What about you could literally put together 8 plays, and then that 6-win season turns to a 9 or 10-win season. So this is what we're talking about, that the margins are so thin that, it could be this and it could be that, but it's not a far distance of difference in a lot of these. Okay, because if you're getting blown out 73-3 every week, if you're in New Mexico State or whatever, you're okay. There's light years of distance between where you are and where you need to be. But even if you want to focus on Miami, from where we were and where we wanted to be, close, bro.
And the same could be said for a lot of teams in the country. But I do think that Miami's a classic example of them. Like, they're at the nth degree. What they performed last year was at the nth degree of that. Definitely. The other thing about this is funny, because I'm making predictions right now, game by game, with all these various teams. So I'm reminding people that 20 to 25% of these games are upsets. I'm also reminding people, as I looked at the previous 3 years, Cam, top 10 teams in the nation. So we've got a small elite, and they basically don't lose any games. And if they lose a game, it's typically to another elite. Then you've got all these teams that are going 10-2, 9-3. And I'm looking at the top 10 teams as the AP has determined by the end of the season. And I'm letting people know who are bashing me for picking some upsets, because how could they lose to them? How could they lose to them? Look at the top 10 teams in the nation in the 2 and 3 games that they're losing. I'll just take one example, but there's a zillion over just the last 3 years. Georgia. They played 4 top 10 teams last year. They beat all of them. They lost to 4-8 South Carolina. Ohio State, 2 consecutive years, was beating 4 and 5 ranked teams and losing to Purdue and Iowa. I've got a zillion examples like that. Wisconsin beat a couple top 10 teams and a number of ranked teams last year. Who'd they lose to? A 7-loss Illinois team. On and on and on and on. Right. And people that are crucifying me for saying, how could they possibly lose to them? And they're not big stretches that I'm making. I'm not saying Florida's losing to Vanderbilt.
Which almost happened twice recently, by the way. You know what I mean?
They were down like 2 scores in the second half last year.
Right. Hello. You know what I mean? Like, It's not that crazy. I mean, but yeah, I mean, there's going to be some upsets. There's going to be those kind of things that happen. So, hopefully you can just have that consistent professional level of performance, and obviously you got guys who are 18 to 22. So the variance is probably going to be high because just like that's a still developmental age. Like, yeah, you want to have everybody who's older, more seasoned, more veteran, and able to just consistently perform at that level. But look, it even happened to Alabama with the worst loss in Nick Saban's tenure in a national championship game. It happens to everybody, but you got to try to avoid those things. And hopefully, with Miami, with this, improved roster, upgraded coaching staff on the offensive side, the upgraded scheme, which is going to use the talent on the roster to great success, hopefully. And having De'Aaron King, because, like Manny Diaz says, there's two plays every time that Miami snaps the ball. There's the play that they call, and there's the play that De'Aaron King can make happen when things break down. And we, have said it a lot of times, and we've seen it on the other side. Miami lost to Florida State a couple times because they had Dalvin Cook and we didn't. And I want to hopefully see that, regardless of the situation and circumstance, Miami has De'Aaron King and the other team doesn't. And I want it, and hopefully that will be a thing that will propel Miami to win in spots where, maybe in the recent past and even last year, they lost.
And let's look at the conference. We've talked many times about the conference in regards to the tiers of talent, but disregard the talent for a second. Just look at the performance on the field and the results on the field. For the last 5 years since Florida State fell off from being able to challenge Clemson, it's been Clemson, and then there's a couple really bad teams. But they haven't even been consistent. It's not like it's been Syracuse every year. They were 10-3 2 years ago. That's even alternated. Georgia Tech was the bad team last year, but they haven't been the bad team before. So even the very worst has cycled through whomever it's been that season. And it was NC State. NC State's been an 8 or 9 win program for the last 5 or 6 years, but they went 1-7 in the conference last year. But basically, you've had this glut of 7-5 teams. And even though Miami's so much better talent-wise than Wake Forest has been performing well. They're really good. They've developed players, and the coaching's good. Dave Clawson does a hell of a job, and they're going 8-4, 7-5 every year somehow. But the conference has basically just been stacked with 7-5 teams.
I mean, that's a byproduct of that, 4-4 coastal madness, or 5-3, that's been going on for a long time. But no, you're right about that.
Got some super chats coming in. I will get to those and post those. They are much appreciated. Canes fan 305 and also Nate 561, very concerned about recruiting a quarterback and keeping with your rules of getting a quarterback in the fold every year.
Recruiting rule number 1, get a quarterback every year. And I mean, honestly, it's Jake Garcia or bust. That's it. Jake Garcia is still committed to USC. He's moved from California, where he was at a couple of different high schools, just because, there was coaching changes and things like that. So he kind of bounced from school to school out there, but he's transferred to Valdosta, Georgia. Rush Probst, the longtime head coach. He was the coach of Hoover, Alabama back, when they had the MTV show, 2-A-Days, it was called. He's the coach out there now and everything. He's closer to Miami, from a geographical standpoint. Jake Garcia is, he's in the group chat with with the majority of the commitments from this recruiting class, because they got a group chat. He FaceTimed with the coaches last week. I know that Ari Wasserman from The Athletic asked Jake Garcia, are you considering going anywhere else other than USC? And to his credit, Jake Garcia said no. But I think that that's part of playing the game, to be perfectly honest. I believe that to be just like, remember when Steve Kerr was asked about changing the starting lineup in the finals before the game 3 in 2000, whatever that was, and told the reporter to his face and said, no, we're going to ride with our same starting 5, nothing changes. And then he started the death lineup that year, or that game, and switched it up. And after the game, he said, what did you want me to do? Like, my 2 options were tell you the truth and give my opponent the insight into the strategy, or lie and surprise them with what we had worked on behind closed doors that obviously, leaked out.
And he can't even say, you know what, we're going to make that decision at game time, because then he's basically saying we probably are going to switch it up, because otherwise I would say, no, we're staying with our starting lineup.
You know what I mean? Exactly. So yeah, you can't even hint at it. It has to be no 100%. So this seems an analogous situation for Jake Garcia because from everything that I've heard and read, there is consideration still. And there are other factors as well. And if you know, and I'm not going to say anything about that. But I mean, there's other factors, that go into this whole thing. And yeah, I think Jake Garcia said what he needed to say in that moment, just like Steve Kerr did. And it is good on him. And I am not denigrating the journalist for standing behind what the kid told him. I just don't think, from everything that I've heard, that the kid told the truth. So it's really Jake Garcia or bust. And, yeah, I mean, that's it. So if not, then you're maybe looking at a transfer, but I'm not really big on that for another year because, if you're going to have a transfer, that's going to go to Georgia, Alabama, Oklahoma, because Oklahoma makes a living off of that. Now you do have Spencer Rattler out there, so maybe he dissuade somebody from going to Oklahoma. So now Miami can raise up the rankings of, okay, if you are a grad transfer and you want to go somewhere else, maybe you come here instead of there. But I don't want to bank on that. But I think that there's a better chance at Jake Garcia than people are mentioning, for one, just because, again, he's playing the game the way that it is to be played. And yeah, it's until Miami presses for somebody else, Miami's going after Jake Garcia.
I love seeing this. Danny Q519. Been watching for a while, first time commenting. I love people that say, hey, I've been watching, whether it's for a few weeks.
First time, long time.
Sometimes it's for like a few years. People will say, I've been watching you for a few years, and this is the first time I've ever said anything. Been watching for a while, first time commenting. Thank you, Mark, Cam, Wholesome One, even those FSU guys for keeping us entertained. With that said, it's all about the U. Go Canes. Garcia to the U.
Let's go. Exactly. Yeah, no,
Thanks,
Danny,
appreciate that.
Appreciate that. And honestly, Danny, you've motivated me because I've been a long-time listener of a certain podcast, and every week they talk about, sending in your 5-star reviews and and everything. And I've been listening to this podcast for going on a decade now. It's been a long, long time, and I've never commented. I've never done anything like that. But because you did here, I'm going to pay it forward, and I'm going to comment on that other podcast, and I hope that you guys do the same.
So we've got 178 on the line. We usually top out around 220. We've been as high on a big game week at 320, 330, 340, something in that range. Man, imagine if all of you who are watching, which should be about 3,000 to 4,000 by the time this posts and is out there for a few days, all of you or a lot of you who really want to support this channel and support our particular show would go out there on social media and say, this is what happens every week. Lock into Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Follow Cam, Underwood Sports, State of the U. Get here for the show. We try to make it consistent every Saturday. Can't do that all the time. That's the reason you subscribe. You turn on the bell. You get the notifications. You know when we're going live. And if all of you would go out there on social media and say, hey, if you love college football talk, not even Miami, just Miami, but certainly if you know Miami fans, bring them in. But we've got fan bases represented all over the place, and you guys have a good time listening to Cam and also kicking it around back and forth about college football. All right. Matthew Ehrman is asking about any potential flips.
I mean, yeah, there's always potential flips. You got to start the list with Savion Collins from Palmetto, the 4-star defensive tackle. He's a guy that obviously you have to watch. I mean, there's guys that are being recruited by other teams. Lawrence Seymour from Miami Central, the offensive lineman. Florida State is trying to push for him. Florida as well. So yeah, you got to play defense with the guys. You got to keep recruiting your recruiting class. You know what I mean? So it's not like the video game where it's just like, okay, cool, I got them to commit and it changed, and then you can just disregard them because that ostensibly makes them sign. No, you got to keep recruiting these guys all the way through. You just got to look at that. So you got to keep recruiting the guys and contacting them and everything like that. Speaking of recruits, I saw a question earlier about Markevius Brown at cornerback. Yeah, he's pretty much the guy that Miami's looking at right now. After the Jason Marshall fiasco, it's been plainly said that Jason Marshall told the coaches that he was going to come to Miami. and that precipitated one of those tweet storms one night. And then whatever happened. And then he announced to Florida. So yeah, you're in the aftermath of that. You're looking at Markevious Brown. He's at IMG now. He's from Pahokee, the Muck area. So he's a guy that maybe we can get. And then, hey, you know, we've written about it, and I've said it a lot of times. Mike Rumpf might get beat up front for the All-American guys from South Florida that we want at cornerback. But every year since he's been here, there's been a late cycle blue chip recruit that Miami pulls at corner out of thin air. So maybe this is year 4 of that, or year 5 of that, where coming down towards signing day, you know, somebody from somewhere else, maybe a late rising blue chipper, maybe someone who's committed to another school, wants to flip around and come down to Miami. So right now, it could be Markevious Brown. At the end, honestly, who knows? Because at this time in the cycle, the last 2 years, Isaiah Dunson was not on Miami's radar in terms of a realistic recruit. And the year before that, Christian Williams was not on Miami's radar in terms of a realistic recruit. Both of those guys now wear orange and green. So, you know, if not Markevious Brown, obviously not Jason Marshall. Maybe we wait till December or February and we see who ends up, you know, as the late cycle get. Because, you know, invariably for the last 5 years, there's been one. So maybe this is, or 4 years, 5, whatever it is, 5 years, I want to say. But yeah, maybe this is the next consecutive year where you get a late cycle ad at corner.
Marcus, let's understand that my aim here at the Voice of College Football is to cover college football across the board. And if everything was equal, which it's not, then I would cover in descending order based on the quality of the current team. You know, I would cover the top 10, and then I would go down and you would see it level off after that. And I would cover the sport as it's being played on the field and based on the results on the field, and the elite teams would be covered the most, and then on down the line. But not everything is equal. And then also understand I'm one person. I'm one person, and I've got other obligations. Then I bring on great guys like Cam, of course. And this goes into the popularity of the schools, the popularity of the teams, and the quality of the contributors that I can find in the media guests. You give me some great Florida people to cover the Gators, I'll do a Gators live stream. I've got nothing against Florida football, unlike Cam. I've got nothing against Florida football. I'll do a Purdue live stream, Kansas State, Stanford, whomever, if people will watch and there's quality conversation.
Look, and I'll put it to you like this. I see your comment. Miami did not beat Duke. Miami did not beat FIU. Miami did not score a point in the bowl game last year. All of those things are true. Do you expect this Miami team to be the exact same as that? Yes or no? Realistically, not wearing, you know, blue and orange, because I see that you got Florida in your avatar and anything. Not wearing garnet and gold. Hey, not even wearing orange and green. Do you realistically think that this team this year, as currently constructed and coached and schemed, is going to be the exact same as last? If you do, okay, thanks for coming. We'll shut down the live stream. We'll all go home. If you don't, then let's talk about it, which I think we're doing.
So what I think of when I hear Cam's statement is pick your team. Kansas, Rutgers, we could select dozens. Do I expect them to have basically the same performance that they had last year and have had for years? Yes, nothing has changed my mind until I see it on the field, and I would make wagers, let's say, if I were a betting man, which wink, wink, I kind of am, in that direction. Would I go out this season, the way things stand right now, and bet Miami to lose to the FIUs, the Georgia Techs, and the Dukes of the world? Heck no, I would not.
Yeah, I mean, but we did. So
sure.
That's why we have worked tirelessly to change things in a positive direction. I mean, Miami does, to Curveball's comment, Miami needs offensive linemen more than anything. True. Yes. You got 3 of them already in this class. Seymour, who I already mentioned, Mike McLaughlin from Stoneman Douglas, and Ryan Rodriguez from Columbus. Rodriguez, who's probably underrated. Seymour, who's probably underrated. McLaughlin was a tight end in Indiana. He came down here. We kind of, slow feet don't eat. You know what I mean? So we're like, hey, Eric Winston style. How about you put that hand in the dirt, go, inside one position from where you were to tackle and make that work. So he's making that transition. But he is, 6'7" to 275, 280. So he has length and everything. Could use one more, if we're being honest, at the offensive line in this class. But again, you still have talent on this roster, and you have talent on the roster. You've added Jared Williams, obviously, from Houston, so that helps for this year. You got guys making moves. Ousmane Traore, excuse me, Jesus. He was a JUCO transfer with 4 years to play 4. So he's in his second year here at Miami, and he seems to be making a push to start at offensive guard. You got Navon Donaldson redshirting this year, was an All-American in high school. He's going to come back next year, hopefully in better shape and able to contribute like when he was a freshman All-American at the college level. So we've seen this kind of performance from him. You have other blue chips on the roster. You have other guys developing, and you got 2 very good recruits, and then you have a very good tackle 2 or 3 year project kind of guy. So look, man, you got talent there, but if we're being real about it, they haven't proven anything yet. So yeah, another offensive lineman, another quality offensive lineman in this class would be a nice addition.
LeBrent with a number of comments in the live chat. We appreciate your contribution. Big Miami Heat fan, apparently. LeBrent asking about the influence that De'Ara King could have on N'Kosi Perry going into next season. And we can't discount, can we, that King may be the quarterback for 2021, the way the rules are being flexed for next year.
Yes. So let's do the second part first. NCAA has said that no player is going to use a year of eligibility for the fall season if they play this fall. So every player will have the ability to come back at the same classification that they currently are. So seniors can be seniors, juniors are still juniors, so you still have 2 years to play, things like that. So De'Ara King, as a 5th-year senior, could come back again as a 5th-year senior eligibility-wise and not have used up a year of eligibility, even if he plays in every single game. So, and same thing for freshmen. If you say you're going to redshirt a freshman, cool, they're still freshmen. You know what I mean? Like they're freshmen next year, whatever. So there is that ability where he could potentially come back and be the quarterback. So that explains that. Maybe poorly, but you get the idea. If De'Ara King were to leave after this year, and N'Kosi Perry, I think, probably going to be the number 2 quarterback, probably has the inside track towards being the starting quarterback next year as a 5th-year senior. I think that just seeing how De'Ara King works, that professionalism, the way that he goes about his business of preparing and taking care of his body and studying the playbook and everything like that, I think that'll be a help. I think seeing the way that he plays on the field also, because although N'Kosi is 6 inches taller than De'Ara King, and by virtue of that has a longer stride, not kind of a short, fast guy, like a speed receiver kind of build like De'Ara King has. But even seeing when De'Ara King runs, how he runs, where he goes, things like that, seeing him do that on the field is going to be helpful. So I think it's going to be hopefully for the quarterbacks. And you centered N'Kosi in there, but let's just put all the quarterbacks. I hope that seeing De'Ara King work the way that he works trickles down to the quarterbacks, like seeing KJ Osborne work trickle down to the wide receivers, hopefully, for this year from last year. Because sometimes you have to have an example. Sometimes, I could tell you, hey, Mark, let's stay after practice. Let's catch balls. Let's get up jump shots. Let's work on our ball handling, whatever it happens to be. Or you could just see a guy who went through a 3-hour practice, took off his jersey, and got to work on whatever skill it was that he was building. And you say, wait, whoa, he's still out here. He's doing that. What? I can find a way to do something. What if I'm working on my hand placement? If I'm a pass rusher, what if I'm working on, my footwork, if I'm trying to get a release down? What if I'm doing something somewhere like that? Because you see the most talented guy doing that. Now you're going to do that, and it's like a thing. Like when I was a teacher, I always said, the better you are, the more you are required to work by your talent. God rest his soul. But you remember that when Miami beat the Lakers when Kobe was playing, and he kicked everybody out of the AAA, and he stayed there for like 3 hours in the gym, not in the practice gym, in the main gym, putting up shots that night after they lost that game, because he said, no, I have to work to keep this up. My talent requires that I feed it with this work. And I think that trickled down to his teammates. It trickled down to other guys in the league. You now see guys, okay, James Harden, he'll stay afterward. He'll get shots up. He'll go work out. LeBron James, okay, he saw that. Now I'm going to go lift, and I'm going to do things after. So even other elite guys saw that, didn't even have to talk about it, and say, okay, now I'm going to flex that kind of muscle. I'm going to have that kind of engagement. Hopefully that trickled down from KJ Osborne to the rest of the receivers, and hopefully that will trickle down or something similar from De'Aaron King to the rest of the quarterbacks, and Cozy Perry included.
David Knight, thank you so much for the contribution. David calls us on a regular basis into our call-in shows, contributes here on the live streams, whether it's Miami, Florida State, Ohio State, and he's a Notre Dame fan. Does your level of I won't say respect, but at least for the Notre Dame fan base, maybe not for the school, for the football program, or certainly the head coach, because you've expressed your thoughts there, which are certainly valid. But there's a Notre Dame fan kicking in $50 there. Thank you so much, David.
That is greatly appreciated and everything. So, yeah, I'm not going to talk badly or anything. I know a couple of people who root for Notre Dame. So they're not all bad people, even though I detest that school and the head coach and everything. But thank you so much. We appreciate that.
And then David makes this comment.
Well, David said it, not me.
So we just remind everyone out there that it's an opportunity to help build the channel, also compensate Cam to a small degree, because I hope you all appreciate. And I don't even go to the time necessarily, because the time's only worth the value that's brought here. If Cam showed up for an hour a week every week and gave us marginal analysis, I would certainly appreciate the hour that he gives us in terms of giving us the time. And it spills into more than an hour in preparation for jumping on here. And then sometimes we go longer than the hour. So appreciate the time, but way over that is the value of the insight, the information, the stories, the background, the information, and the insight and knowledge of the personnel, the recruiting. All of it is just exceptional. And just think about the rapid fire questions that come from all directions, and comments and topics that are brought to the table for Cam, of which I help him out about that much when it's like the ACC or college football. But when it comes to Miami, there's really no reason for me to comment. I leave it all up to Cam. I've certainly have my thoughts on Miami football. I watch about 7 or 8 games a year typically, but it's all Cam when it comes to personnel breakdowns and everything that he delivers here. So it's good stuff. I don't even know what time it is here. We've hit our bewitching hour of noon.
Noon 02.
Anything else? Let me give it a quick scan, or if there's anything else on your mind.
Not really. I got to go through these emails. I got to write a blog. I got to write a couple of pieces and everything, and set up the final football season coverage schedule for State of the U, man. Because I've been kind of inundated with the secret day job, and I'm like, oh, we got a game in 2 weeks, so I guess I better figure out who's going to write about what when it comes to game week time. So I got those things. Gonna have lunch with a buddy of mine, I think. So I'll be willing to pay for QB information at this point, y'all. Give me some good news. De'Aaron King's gonna start. We're going after Jake Garcia as a recruit. Contrary to popular belief, I know there was another website that twisted what Garcia told to Wasserman from The Athletic and put that in their headline. And I'm like, that's just not factually accurate. It's just not. Sorry. But, that's it. It's going to be De'Aaron King. I said it from the moment that, he picked Miami. De'Aaron King is the guy. Set it and forget it, and we'll worry about who's going to quarterback next year for next year. Yeah, but he's different. What?
Well, let's conclude with this right here, but we'll also note, I'll get back to that comment in just a second. Want to note that we appreciate all the Super Chat contributions, and we just got one in from George, 850 Kane. So let's start with this one, Cam, if we can keep you for like 2 more minutes or so.
No, I got a couple more. Yeah.
Because George has contributed here, and his question is about Robert Burns, which to hear Cam's storyline description and thought of so I don't know if you've got a connection with this particular viewer.
No, I don't.
I thought that's where the laugh came from. Possibly.
No. The question made me laugh. The way that he worded it, it's hilarious.
But Cam has been amazing when it's come to, well, just so many different topics, subjects, personnel, so forth. But Robert Burns in particular, if I could piece together all the statements that Cam's made down through the years about Robert Burns, it would be just a beautiful thing.
Oh, man. Yeah. It would. That would be a serious undertaking. So if you're listening to this as podcast only later, the question from George, 850 Kane, is Robert Burns a myth at this point? And that's what made me laugh, because he seems like a mythical creature. The thing about it is I've seen the mythical creature. I've seen him do what made him into a myth, what made him into a blue chip recruit that day at American Heritage years ago, man, for the Under Armour, the opening regional down here. And he was a high school freshman at the time. You have all of the big rising. So he's a rising sophomore. He was a current high school freshman going into his 10th grade year. So you have the rising sophomore or rising juniors and rising seniors who are all 4-stars and 5-star recruits. They're guys who are playing in the NFL now. I mean, just everybody's All-Americans. They played in the All-American games, and they're doing their recruiting thing. They're running around and doing all the testing and whatnot. And Robert Burns put on a show that day, unlike which we've rarely ever seen. It was the highest Spark rating ever in the history of Spark ratings to that point. I mean, he was a freak. It was crazy. Like, he was doing so much because on the main field you had quarterbacks and receivers, and on the backfield at Heritage you had linebackers, running backs, and offensive defensive line. He was doing so much so well that they moved the linebacker running back group to the main field because all the journalists and bloggers and parents and everybody who was there started going to the backfield because you're like, whoa, you're hearing these rumors about this kid just putting on the show, and he's 5'10", 215 with 3% body fat at 15 years old. He was a unicorn. He was a mythical creature come alive, and I'm there. Bud Elliott, who used to be with SB Nation, he's there next to me. Michael Felder in the Bleachers is his Twitter account. He used to run inthebleachers.net. Now he's with Stadium, I believe. He was there next to me. Steven Nelson, who's now on MLB.com. He was Felder's partner at Bleacher Report doing national recruiting that year. You got the ESPN guys. You got the 247 Sports guys. All those guys literally shoulder to shoulder with me. And we're just watching Robert Burns put on a show, the likes of which you have very, very seldom, if ever, seen. And then he's gone. He's like Kaiser Soze. Like, it just poof, out of there. And he's just been injury after injury after injury. And, you see him to this point. He's 5'10", 225. He got a couple carries last year. He's this big, just muscular back. You still got quick feet. You still have all the athletic traits. But he is just cursed with all of these injuries, man. And to this point, he's like barely, I don't think he's practiced yet, this fall, because he's not ready coming back off of the injury from last year. And yeah, it would take Mark a long time to go back and piece together all the statements I've made about Robert Burns, because he's a 4th year junior this year. So he's 4 years in college. I've been talking about this kid for 7, almost 8 years real time from the day that I saw that and gushed, because again, I'm there shoulder to shoulder with all of the big names that from the recruiting industry. And there's all these 4-stars and 5-stars who are going to sign with teams that current year. And everybody disregarded all of them to focus on this freshman who wasn't even on the roster, So we had to go to the organizers and say, who's number 477? What is his name and what high school does he go to? Because he's not even on our list. And he put on that kind of a show. So for more than half of a decade, I've been talking about Robert Burns like this. Then he gets, he plays a sophomore year, doesn't really play his junior year, has 9 carries for 73 yards and a 99-yard kickoff return touchdown in his senior year. Yes, that was the entirety of the statistics, and I know it by heart because it was 10 snaps. Then he comes to Miami, boom, gets blown up by John Garvin in practice. He gets injured. Okay, so during his redshirt year, boom, he redshirts. Next year, boom, gets injured. Next year, boom, gets injured. This year, his 4th year, boom, he's still injured. So, it does almost feel like he's a mythical creature. It almost feels like he's, Marcus Dupree from The Best That Never Was, or like Boobie Miles. You know what I mean? Just because look, go look up the film from his freshman year or from his sophomore year. It exists. There are people down here. We've seen him in person do these incredible mythical things. And since then, he's just been ravaged with injuries, which, it sucks. It sucks for him. I could say other things, but I'm just going to say it sucks for him because like I said, I've seen what he can do. I've seen the mythical status. I've seen what made him into this mythological creature. And to have that taken away from just injury after injury after injury is just, it's cruel, and I'm not saying that anybody did it to him intentionally or anything, but just I feel for the kid, obviously. Then you get guys and unfortunately, you recruit over him. You have a Cam Harris who was recruited the year after Robert Burns. Boom, he slides right into the number 2 back. It was Travis Homer and DJ Dallas. And then you had Cam Harris, so he comes in, he with Lorenzo Lingard. Lingard gets hurt, and then Harris steps up. Now, you have Harris as running back 1, and then you got 2 freshmen who, one has the 2nd most rushing yards in Broward County high school history behind Tyrone Moss, God rest his soul, that being Jalen Knighton. You have the other one who put up ridiculous numbers and was a 3-time high jump champion in Dade County at Belen Jesuit, being Donald Chaney Jr. Both of those guys are recruited over Robert Burns. So not only are you ravaging with these injuries, but since those injuries are holding you back, we got these young guys who are amazing, and they're going to step into that void and everything. But I know it's a long and winding answer, but at this point, currently, yes, I would say that Robert Burns is a myth. He's a mythological creature. But for those of us who were there at the time and saw the myth live and in person, it was real. Trust and believe. It was real.
I say this not as a knock on listening to all this analysis throughout the years about Robert Burns. I feel truly blessed to know this much about a player who has 31 career carries and 2 pass receptions, 3 pass receptions, and has reached the end zone 1 time. Do you remember that 1 time, Cam?
No.
It was against Duke last year. He had his most prolific game, even though it was, in terms of yards per carry, not impressive. 18 carries for 48 yards in the loss to Duke and reached the end zone.
Now I do remember that.
1 kick return in his career at Miami, 31 carries, 3 pass receptions. I was trying to think of somebody who rivals this type of storyline, but I can't come up with it, because if you go to another university and somebody was some kind of phenom and then they didn't do anything, then we don't know about them because they didn't step on the field at Michigan or Penn State or wherever, unless you're really entrenched in that program. I was going to like the Marcus Dupree, but obviously he shined in college. It was just brief. Right. And then he did the USFL and got hurt and never happened. And then it's really kind of poignant and sad if you see the documentary on Marcus Dupree. He finally gets to the NFL, but he's a shell of himself, and he has like 1 burst for like 15 yards in a meaningless game, Giants-Rams game at the end of the year. But that was kind of like okay, we could have seen this for 10 years, but we didn't.
Yeah. It's more like Boobie Miles, man. Just got, injured. And not even saying he tried to come back, but was a superstar, got injured. Sure, Boobie Miles didn't play in college, and, Robert Burns has been at the University of Miami, but yeah, it just it hasn't gone for him like I think anybody hoped. And I think at the end, like the bitter end of his recruiting class, they finally dropped Robert Burns from a 4-star to a 3-star. And it had taken years of that to get there. And I remember having talked to a couple of guys in the recruiting world, a couple journalists, bloggers, whatever you want to call them, who had made the trek to a couple different games of Gulliver Prep, hoping to see him, because like, duh, you want to see the guy. And then, you're talking, okay, well, warm-ups, I don't see 22 out here. Hey, coach, 22 playing today? Kind of a thing. And then all of a sudden he's in street clothes and everything. And it just is, it just hasn't gone the way that I think anybody wanted or hoped for the guy. But yeah, I mean, even through all of that, even with, some of the guys who do the rankings for the services, they held on until almost the final update of that recruiting class, because again, that day at American Heritage at his freshman and sophomore year, they had seen it. And you figure, okay, even if a guy is injured, he's still a blue chip guy. Like I've seen him do things that other guys have never done still. I mean, okay, that spark rating has been eclipsed finally down the road, but it took 4 years for that rating to get, eclipsed or whatever when he was in college already, things like that. So, I mean, yeah, those in the recruiting industry, they figure, okay, he's still a blue chip. And then finally, after that very, very, very truncated senior year, I said, let's throw him on the top of the 3-star group, or in that bucket. So yeah, it hasn't gone the way that anybody would have hoped for Robert Burns. But hey, he's a guy from Miami. He obviously has love for the University of Miami. He wanted to go to the University of Miami and wear the Hurricanes colors. So he can always have that, even though I can be critical of people for their performance on the field, I wish them all well personally. Even Malik Rozier, I know people are saying, I was very critical of him as a football player, but I've never wished ill upon him or anyone. So, for Robert Burns, I hope that, I wish him well, and going through everything, if he's, eventually going to go pro in something other than the sports, I hope that he has peace with that, because I know it can be tough, especially if somebody like his caliber, because you're on top of the mountain and all of a sudden, you're left to do something else. And look, most of us are doing something else. I was a teacher, and now I do the secret day job. Mark, obviously in broadcasting, you as a listener watching this video or whatever, you do something that's outside of sports. And we were all athletes. We all had, goals and dreams. I wanted to be a basketball player, but my growth chart in third grade said I was going to be 6'9", and I ended up being 6 feet tall. I mean, I had some skills, but I wasn't that kind of a dude. I had like one low-level interest, and I tore my ankle up senior year of high school. And then I said, well, I go to this prep school. I'm going to graduate with honors, and I'm going to use this brain to get me somewhere else. But I kind of already come to terms with the fact I wasn't going to be a professional athlete. Somebody like Robert Burns, maybe it's been a smaller or shorter time to deal with that. So hopefully, he has the ability and the faculties to do that. And, hopefully if he needs to get some assistance, and being all kinds of transparent, I've been to therapy in my life. So it's done wonders for me. And if he needs that, then hopefully, and I know that there is a support at the University of Miami, especially with sports psychologists and just mental health professionals and things like that. And if he needs that, I hope he gets that as well. So, I obviously do wish him well and everything, but no, it hasn't gone in terms of football performance the way that anybody would have expected or hoped for Robert Burns in Miami, but it's like that sometimes.
Before the Robert Burns super chat question came up that we wanted to honor there, this is what I had targeted to be the final question, because it's a program mammoth type statement. Okay, Mark Thibodeau is a Michigan fan. I'm guessing he's been watching for about a month to 6 weeks, and he comments all the time. So, Mark, we appreciate you finding the channel and contributing. But have you watched all the shows? We've done 81 of these. Cam's been on for about 75 of them. Plus, I wish I would have kept track from day one. Had I known Cam would be on for 7 years or whatever it's been, I would have logged all the appearances. So we're in the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times Cam's been on here. Yes, he has talked about Howard Schnellenberger. Take it away, Cam.
Well, I mean, it's just, yeah. I mean, there have been times when we talked about the building of the program at the University of Miami, and you got to start, number one, with the legendary Howard Schnellenberger, who still is not in the College Football Hall of Fame, and that needs to be changed while he's alive. Really? Yes. I mean, and look, he was at Louisville. He was here and built Miami into the Miami that we're talking about now. He started the program at FAU. You know what I mean? And he's not in the College Football Hall of Fame. Like, yo, that needs to change first and foremost.
And the college sports Hall of Fames are much more lenient and much more inviting and inclusive than the professional, less stringent. There are some people that have nice careers, but they seem to be more of a college approach to, hey, if you contributed in a large degree, you maybe weren't the greatest coach or dominated in any way, but we're very inclusive. So I'm shocked by that.
Yeah, I'm as well. And, we've been kind of campaigning for it. I think we're going to write somebody did write a piece for State of the U about that. And we're going to just continue that pressure, keep that energy, because, it's more than well-deserved. So you can go on stateoftheu.com and search that one. Also, the former managing editor, a good friend of mine, Lieutenant Philip Nolan, he had the ability or the opportunity to interview Howard Schnellenberger some years ago now. But that's up on stateoftheu.com as well. It was a one-on-one chat with Lieutenant Nolan and Howard Schnellenberger, and they talked for almost an hour. And then LT called me, and he goes, "You'll never guess who I spoke to." And I'm like, "You tell me." He was like, "Wow, voice almost." I mean, he has a more distinguished, whatever. But he was like, "Coach," and I was like, "Coach?" He goes, "Oh no, Coach Schnellenberger," and I lost my mind. And we then stayed on the phone for an hour talking about his hour-long conversation with the legendary Howard Schnellenberger. So yeah, he's somebody that we have talked about on the website, somebody that I've talked about as well here and many other places. But obviously a legendary coach, came in and built Miami into the Miami that we all know and love. You know what I mean? In terms of the football program, like without him, things go very differently. We don't have 5 championships and again, going back to the earlier question about 1 or 2 things going differently, Miami could have 8, 9, like legitimately in these 40 years could really, have that many championships. That doesn't happen without Howard Schnellenberger. That doesn't happen without him focusing on the state of Miami for recruiting, going into the inner cities where these coaches wouldn't go, focusing on the guys from there instead of having them go to Southern or FAMU and things like that. Say, no, you're going to come to the University of Miami instead of letting them go to Florida State in Florida. Say, no, I know it's a small private school, but you're going to come here. We're going to build this and we're going to win. Just a legendary figure in the world of college football, obviously, especially for the University of Miami. I hold him in the highest regard. I have never, and I would never say a bad word about Howard Schnellenberger. The only thing that is negative, I would say, is I wish he would have stayed at the University of Miami to continue his run, because then I think that he could have been in the annals of college coaches at or among the top group and I think that he's still there anyway, only after, 1 championship, 2. He changed the college football universe, changed because of the University of Miami, this microwave dynasty that popped up out of nowhere. And again, I'm from Michigan. You know what I mean? I grew up going to the big house with 112,000 of my closest friends and everything. I know I've seen those games against Michigan State, Penn State, Ohio State, Notre Dame. I know the long-term, you go back to the teens and 20s and 1890s of football and I know all of that. Miami's been around basically in my living lifetime and has come to the forefront and out of nowhere. So even if you talk about Alabama, claiming 19 championships and whatever, or 27 million, whatever they claim. But they were good and then went away and then came back. Texas has been around. Miami was not around. Miami was a bad program, period. Full stop. On the borderline of closing. If you've watched the U documentary, go back and watch that. I've talked to guys from Miami because, again, I grew up in Detroit, so I didn't have firsthand knowledge of that. But, you go to Burger King and get a Whopper, and they're giving you a free ticket voucher for the University of Miami football games at the Orange Bowl. A free ticket with a Whopper. That's where the state of this program was. And Howard Schnellenberger lit this program on fire, this microwave dynasty. It took 4 years, but you go through, you get that together, you win a championship and all those kind of things. I cannot speak highly enough about Howard Schnellenberger. And maybe it's my fault that I haven't spoken more about him, even when not asked about him. But he is absolutely a legend in the world of college football. He is absolutely the reason that Miami is as a football program, esteemed to the level that we are, that we have the relevance, even when we're bad, because again, those are different situations. Even if we've been bad, Miami is relevant because Howard Schnellenberger built us into being that elite, relevant kind of a program. And we've talked about it before here. I'll talk about him more again. And again, you can go and search Howard Schnellenberger's name on the State of the U website. And if I go do that right now, I'm actually going to go do that. Hold on one second. I click over. It's going to load up. I click the search button. Come on, search. Come on, search. Come on, search. There we go. Howard Schnellenberger. I was right. Burger. If you go and search that up on stateoftheu.com, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I have 10 pieces, and out of 53 that are tagged with Howard Schnellenberger, and that's just on searching his name on stateoftheu.com. So if you're looking for content about Coach Schnellenberger, then I would honestly send you there. Go and see that from the time that I've been blogging. Even that chat with Philip Nolan is right here. And if you follow me on Twitter at Underwood Sports, I'm going to tweet this out right now. A chat with Coach Schnellenberger. Yep, sorry. I was trying to spell that. And I'm going to tag in Lieutenant Nolan's new Twitter account. And I just posted that on my Twitter at Underwood Sports, that link to that conversation from, and I can actually tell you, from January 17th of 2013. So, you know, that is the thing that we've talked about. And hey, you know, sometimes you got to be reminded of greatness. And I appreciate you for bringing Howard Schnellenberger's name back to the forefront of my brain. And hopefully it is to the forefront of everyone's brain. And hopefully it is in the brains of those for the College Football Hall of Fame. And they elect him, as is way overdue for next year. But yeah, he's absolutely a legend at the University of Miami. And if I've done a disservice by not speaking about him enough, then I apologize.
I could certainly add my perspective, but what Cam said certainly is better than what I could add, and I will save my comments for another time to save time. And also, again, what Cam had to say certainly stands up rather well. Stephen Smith, thank you so much for the super sticker, whatever that super sticker thing is. I don't even know what that is, but thank you so much for the super sticker in the super chat. Stephen, thank you so much. Haven't even seen your name before that I can recall. But thank you so much for the contribution. We appreciate it. We will let Cam go unless you have anything else to say. I'm going to stick around for maybe 3 minutes. I just want to review if there are any other comments in the live chat that can be addressed by me, and certainly wrap up the show and let people know what else is available. Thanks, Cam.
That's all for me. So again, my personal Twitter is at Underwood Sports, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We're at the State of the U. The website is stateoftheu.com, and we're pushing towards the season. So check out all the content we have there, and we got more coming up for you soon. See ya.
178 on the line right now. And I made this comment earlier. Just imagine, everybody that's watching right now, if you would go out on social media, Facebook, Twitter, whatever else you're involved in, and just let people know that we're here talking Miami football, talking college football every day, but in particular to this show, talking Miami football. We did yesterday with a wholesome one live, and then today with Cam Underwood pushing an hour and 20 minutes. So 2.5 hours of Miami football talk live with you in the span of 2 days. So let people know that we're out there. And again, there are people that you follow and follow you on social media that have no idea who Cam Underwood is, the wholesome one, myself, have no idea we exist and can only be reached if you let them know that we're talking Miami football here every week at the minimum, but typically every few days, several times per week. I want to acknowledge again, Stephen Smith, thank you so much for the contribution, as well as George 850 Kane, Ronan Jones, thank you so much for the contribution. Turan, Danny Q519, David Knight, of course, Kane's fan 305 as well. You don't need to contribute financially for us to appreciate what you do right here. Just please hit the like button, smash it down each and every time you catch some content here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. I'm going to go through the live chat, see if there's anything that I can address. And we will be back on Sunday night, most likely at 10 o'clock Eastern time. I'm not going to hold you to that in particular because sometimes there are work and family obligations that get in the way. But Sunday night is the aim at 10 o'clock Eastern time to stay with that. We've got some more exciting content plans that we're putting together with some other contributors as we speak. Also, with the season only 10 days to 2 weeks away, of course, you can look forward to my game-by-game predictions as I make my way through the SEC, then the ACC, and the Big 12. We'll see what's up with the Big 10. Plenty of talk concerning the Big 10 starting a season in November, which would be a huge mistake. I will comment on that further, but we talked Ohio State football and the Big 10 specifically, and this decision that they're facing right now to bring back football before their intended spring date. So check out our Ohio State Live. Miami fans, you obviously have a vested interest in Florida State football. We talk Seminoles every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock Eastern time, so check that out. All right, what do we have here? We got Jordan, of course, showing up. Good to see you, Jordan. Number one ND fan, good to see you. If both teams played a great game and you guys barely lost, that would be one thing. That was two teams having horrid week 0 performances. Talking Miami and Florida last year, but the Gators did turn out to be a top 10 team in the nation, and Miami could make every claim to have played even with them. Somebody had to win, somebody had to lose. And keep in mind that Miami was starting not just a freshman quarterback, but in his first start, national television against a top 10 ranked defense. This season, Miami will have a quarterback who accounted for over 50 touchdowns 2 years ago, albeit at the group of 5 level, but still in the finest of the group of 5 conferences and against elite contributions at times. Anything else in here? Matrix Survivor, even the janitor of all the Florida schools should be able to coach their team to a national title with all that talent. Yes, if Florida talent stays at home, those 3 major powers plus UCF and even to a lesser extent South Florida should be in great shape. FJ, good to see that you finally were able to make a live show. Typically, we go for Miami Football Talk on Saturdays at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, but that's not locked in every week because of changing schedules. Notre Dame versus Clemson twice. Could be. Mark, good to see you, of course. And your question about Howard Schnellenberger certainly sparked Cam, so that was a good discussion and good to hear there. My perspective on Howard Schnellenberger was I was watching college football in 1983, and I was tracking it, and I was a diehard fan at that point, so I certainly remember 1983. And if you had any insight into what was happening in college football, even though we didn't have the advantage of the internet to track information and track personnel and everything, you could see Miami coming since 1979. Jim Kelly at quarterback. 1980, they won a Peach Bowl. You could see Miami coming and coming and coming, but it was still kind of surreal to see them play what was a de facto national championship game against Nebraska on New Year's Day of 1984 and win that game as a double-digit underdog against what many people believed to be at the time the greatest team of all time, with Mike Rozier at running back, Turner Gill at quarterback, and of course you had the wide receiver, I'm blanking, who went to the Patriots, Irving Fryer. And that team lost 28-3 in the opener to Florida, then rallied with 10 consecutive wins, put themselves in a position to be number 5 in the country because of the obvious location draw and the way bowl games were selected at the time. The Big 8 had ownership of the Orange Bowl and hosted the Orange Bowl. If you notice the 1984 Orange Bowl game tape, you will see that Miami's wearing the road uniforms and always did at the Orange Bowl, because even though they were playing in their home stadium, It was the Big Eight opponent, which was always Nebraska or Oklahoma for the many times that Miami played in the Orange Bowl from that 1983 season through 1994 was the last time they played Nebraska in the Orange Bowl. So they had a couple dates against Oklahoma there in which they throttled Barry Switzer and company. And then, of course, against Nebraska in winning all those games against the Huskers. The first one was a classic 31-30 on the failed 2-point play that was deflected in the end zone on the Turner Gill pass to the, I think it was to Jeff Smith in the right flat. But the other games against the Huskers was a multi-talented Miami, fast, freakish, athletic Miami team crushing Nebraska 23-3, 22-0. But then Nebraska certainly changed its approach, changed its recruiting, changed its passing game to be at least formidable, at least capable, and came back and won a historic Orange Bowl against Miami in 1995 to conclude the 1994 national championship. So that's the last time during that era that those two teams stepped on the same field for a national championship between 1983 and 94. Of course, there was the rout at the Rose Bowl to finish off a 2001 national championship for Miami against the Nebraska team that probably did not belong there after losing by 4 scores against Colorado the day after Thanksgiving in their rivalry game. I'll have to review that season at some point, but Colorado, Nebraska, Oregon were the 3 teams in the mix to play Miami for a national championship. It doesn't appear as though any one of those 3 teams would have competed well in that game. But Nebraska was certainly, they were the first of a run of teams that did not belong clearly in the BCS national championship game, and where it showed that the BCS system was severely flawed. Oklahoma the next year getting to a national championship game after losing by 4 scores in the Big 12 championship game. I could go on. Ray is telling us that Jimmy Johnson made Miami. That could be certainly argued as well, although Schnellenberger won a national championship and left. So we won a national championship, so it had been built. Maybe not built and maintained, but it had been built, and that wasn't just a bam, we're showing up and we won a national championship. Again, Miami was winless going back to a season in the late 70s, I believe 1976 or 77, something in that range. Both Miami and Florida State had winless seasons in the mid-70s, around 75, 76, 77, 0-10 and 1. By 1979, they were good. They took Penn State to the wire, may have defeated Penn State. I'm going to have to look that up and double check. My mind's a little foggy going back 40 years, but Jim Kelly at quarterback. Again, I remember watching the 1980 Peach Bowl against Virginia Tech, winning that game. And Miami they were off and running. But it was, again, not the information age of the internet where people really could recognize that across the nation. So there were shocked, legitimate college football fans. I'm not just talking about people who tune into a few games a year. Legitimate college football fans that were shocked, not recognizing what was building throughout the 1983 season, as Miami, again, had lost the first game to Florida by 25 points and then started to pick up all the big wins throughout the 83 season, and it dropped into their lap. Had Miami not been located in South Florida to make that natural draw to the Orange Bowl, Miami may not have been given the opportunity to win that national championship. Meanwhile, Miami needed things to fall into place. Earlier in the day at the Cotton Bowl, number 2 Texas, undefeated, would certainly have been named the national champion, lost a 10-9 game on a muffed punt in the final 5 or 6 minutes against Texas. And Fred Akers, Vince Dooley in the Cotton Bowl in Dallas. So Georgia upset Texas to pave the way for Miami. And also it was determined that Auburn received a number of number 1 votes because they played the most difficult schedule in the country and beat Michigan, but unimpressively 9-7. In the Sugar Bowl, a game that was played at the same time as Miami and Nebraska. All right. we could go on and on with this. Once we start back to yesteryear, I could again go on and on. Sunday night, we'll be here at some point, most likely at 10 o'clock Eastern time, to take your college football phone calls right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Enjoy the content, and we'll see you soon.